So here's the deal. I had heard as far back as like a week ago that like the rumors started swirling that JJ was starting to consider people for his assistant coaching staff. And that led to the article that I wrote for Lakers Daily, which dropped last, I believe, Saturday. And then over the course of the week, we've only gotten more reason to believe that he is going to be the guy. Today, Mark Stein on his Substack, which I hope you guys are subscribed to, reported the following. I'm going to go ahead and read this if I can scroll back up. Okay, yeah. Quote, more smoke to support the idea that ESPN's JJ Redick is indeed the leading candidate to land the Lakers head coaching job. Rumbles about possible staff targets for Redick have already begun to circulate. Again, I hadn't heard specific names, but I had heard, about a week ago that that Redick was starting to do his research on what a staff would look like. Stein continues. League sources say fellow Lakers search candidates Sam Cassell of Boston and James Borrego of New Orleans would be prime targets for Redick's staff, as well as an expected run at trying to bring Mavericks assistant coach Jared Dudley back to Lakerland. As a Laker for the final two seasons of his career in 2019 and 2020, and then the 2021 season, Dudley had strong relationships with both LeBron James and Anthony Davis. So, yeah, I mean, like, now that we're getting actual names attached to that coaching list, and I have heard nothing whatsoever that would indicate that Redick, didn't impress in his interview, or anything that would indicate that he is not going to be the guy. I'm just about ready to call it and say that JJ Redick is going to be the next coach of the Los Angeles Lakers. It's just a matter of, I believe, when this gets announced. This whole deal and this weird industry is obviously always a very much a moving target. So maybe something flies out of left field. You have the situation between Mike Brown and the Sacramento Kings, and then obviously we have the continued standoff between Tyronn Lue and the LA Clippers. And in both of those cases, those coaches want big money, and I think both of those teams are looking at them like, we kind of need more from you in the postseason with us to feel comfortable giving you that kind of money. I happen to believe that Monty Williams might have ruined big contracts for coaches from here on out, him and Doc Rivers, because they got paid like crazy, and neither of them were particularly good this year. And now you have all of these coaches saying like, well, they got the big contracts, and their teams are probably talking to them like, yeah, look how it worked out for those teams. So you have a lot going on there between Lue and the Clippers and between Mike Brown and the Kings. And so I guess maybe there's like a shred of hope that one or both of those guys becomes available, in which case the Lakers may pivot, especially in the case of Lue. They would, I would imagine, pivot. But as things stand right now, with those guys likely not going to be available to the Los Angeles Lakers, the Lakers have basically kind of moved forward here. They've started their interview process. And as I said, heading into the interview process, that the Lakers were hoping to be wowed by JJ Redick. And I've heard nothing that would indicate that wasn't the case. And now you hear that he is, compiling a potential coaching staff, and we'll kind of see where things go from here. But my guess, and I had somebody tell me this today, that I think that the Lakers would like the idea of it being leaked or announced during the finals, that one of the voices of the finals is going to be their next head coach. I think they like those moments, and they'd like that kind of little pat on the back. That might be one of the potential reasons that they are holding out on this decision. You also have the kind of complicated situation here between JJ Redick and ESPN, where ESPN isn't going to have enough time to replace him going into the NBA Finals. And so they're probably going to say, well, you have to finish out this season, and then you can start working with the Lakers. So the Lakers might be sitting here saying, well, while you're getting paid with ESPN, you'll go ahead and go and do that, and we'll hold off. We won't have to pay you while you're working for ESPN, and then we'll go ahead and get this thing going officially after the finals. So I had somebody say that an agreement is in place. I don't know if I'm necessarily comfortable to go that far, but I do think, though, that this is where this is heading, and JJ Redick is going to be the next coach of the Lakers. I'm about 90% sure that that's how this thing turns out. Maybe even 95, maybe even higher. I don't know. It might just be cowardice on my part to not go all the way and say that I am 100% sure that this guy is going to be the next head coach. It's been moving in that way for a long time now, and there has been nothing to derail that train, and it would appear that that is going to be how this plays out. What I did find interesting about those names is that, as Stein points out, that Cassell and Borrego were also parts of this supposed candidate search or head coach search. I say supposed because I really feel like we should say, like, anytime we say search, we should do like crazy air quotes. Like, the Los Angeles Lakers were very arch among candidates to be their next head coach, because it's very much it's felt like a one-man race this whole way through. To be completely honest, it has never felt like JJ was not going to be the guy. Once they, and you could even see it in the framing that The Athletic did, where it was like, James Borrego kind of overlapped with Anthony Davis, and Sam Cassell is well respected throughout the league. And, oh, by the way, we think JJ Redick is Pat Riley. Like you can't, if you were paying any attention there on the framing there, you can't, once you leak that you think this guy could be Pat Riley, you're gonna hire the guy. Right? Like, once what, and then I think Mark Stein used the word infatuated with the idea of hiring JJ Redick, and we've been finding all of these really fun and spectacular ways to phrase the idea that they're getting ready to hire the guy but haven't actually come to an agreement with him. This is how this is always kind of moving, it's felt like. And again, once you compare him to Pat Riley, legend and icon of the Lakers specifically, but also broadly the NBA, as one of the best and most successful executives in league history, once you compare JJ Redick to that guy and then you don't hire him, it's like, wait, so you thought he could be Pat Riley and then didn't hire him. I do find it interesting, though, that Borrego and Cassell, two other people who were considered possibilities here for this hiring, are also willing to work with somebody that they were competing against for this job. Likely means that they'll be getting promotions on the bench compared to their current situations, where Borrego, I would imagine, would be the lead assistant for Redick, and Sam Cassell I would imagine, be very close behind him. And then Dudley, is like a fringe front of the bench type guy. He maybe moves up a seat or two, and returns to LA for that opportunity. I still think a ton of work would need to be done. It's also like the way that I kind of summarized it in a text that I was sending to somebody, but it was leaked, right, that Borrego kind of overlapped time in New Orleans with Anthony Davis, and that Anthony Davis was a fan. So, okay, you have AD's guy on the staff in James Borrego. We know, like, in that season where the Lakers lost Alex Caruso, it was actually Jared Dudley who got a tweet from LeBron saying he was bummed that Dudley was not going to be with the Lakers the following year. So Dudley's very much going to be LeBron's guy, as is, I would imagine, JJ Redick. And then Cassell steps into that Jason Kidd type position where he is a former great player. He's not a Hall of Famer, But he was a pretty to very good NBA player, and he has a ton of respect throughout the league, both as a former player and as an assistant coach. So you'll have that kind of a voice in the locker room. I think Stein also further linked the Lakers to Chris Paul. I heard over the weekend that is interest is very, very real, and the Lakers are paying very close attention to the Chris Paul situation. So we'll see where that goes. But that would also make sense as another voice that would help with the accountability at the very top of the roster, and then obviously ripple its way through the rest of the locker room. So those assistant coaches were interesting to me. I do kind of wish that like Adelman or Nori would have been one of those potential guys, so that you would have their system in place here for the Lakers. But in both of, in Adelman's case, he's in the Western Conference Finals right now, on a team that is probably going to run it back with title aspirations next year. He's probably thinking to himself, if I do this again, if we are successful again next year, probably going to get a head coaching gig after that. And same goes for Adelman, right? And in Adelman's case, they're in Denver. If he continues to maintain the positive reputation that he has throughout the league with his work there in Denver, then he also would be able to potentially skip, this type of process again and become a head coach next year without having to be an assistant coach on a different staff. So I was hoping that maybe those guys would be considered, but I look, JJ Redick is very much a player forward hire. It is being done with the players in mind here, and it looks like the rest of the coaching staff is kind of following suit, or the Lakers are following suit. I've heard that the Lakers are being a little bit more active with Redick in sharing a couple notes as to who they would maybe like to see on his coaching staff. And again, it doesn't really surprise me that if they're doing that, two of the people that they were impressed by, Sam Cassell was really high. They were basically these three guys, Redick, Borrego, and Cassell were the three finalists, basically, with Redick having a nice wide gap between the other two. It would kind of make sense that the Lakers would see if they could, if they were impressed by Borrego, if they were impressed by Cassell, see if they could get those guys on Redick's staff to work with the competition. So, yeah, I think I think all of this is to say that Customize a Plate is asking JJ can't be hired until after the finals. They could come to an agreement, and they can agree on a contract. And again, I had somebody say that they believe that the Lakers and Redick have an agreement in place, and they're just waiting for the right time to announce it. Didn't want to do it on a holiday Monday, and they didn't want to Friday news dump it at the beginning of the holiday weekend. So maybe it happens as soon as tomorrow. As everybody comes off of the holiday weekend, and the conference finals is still very much going on, and or maybe it happens in the gap between, because it looks like we're going to have a bit of a gap between the Western Conference Finals and the Eastern Conference Finals, for that matter, and the NBA Finals. Maybe it happens during that gap, or it's possible that it gets announced, at the onset of those finals, so that you can get the obligatory hey, congratulations from Mike Breen and Doris Burke to JJ Redick on the air, in which case the Lakers make a headline in the middle of the NBA Finals, and we'll see what that looks like. But with a bit of a gap between the Western Conference Finals and the NBA Finals, potentially, that allows you to bring Redick in, for a bit of a longer conversation. You can, dot the I's, cross the T's. You could start conversations about personnel, and here's here's who we like potentially in the draft. Here's what we're potentially thinking in terms of maybe using that draft pick. You could start that conversation about, or continue, I guess, that conversation about assistant coaches, and just general philosophy with Redick in that gap between the conference finals and the NBA finals. But I do think if it isn't done already, as this one person told me, who is close to the Lakers situation, it's again more a matter of when versus if.